So hello, Connected Empowerment. This is Tony again. We're going to do video number 2. I am here with one retired Sergeant Major, Mike Broady. He is another coworker of mine and just a fantastic number one facilitator. So he facilitates, he teaches, he coaches, he mentors. Not much he hasn't done. Like I said, retired Sergeant Major. So wanted just to get him to tell us a little bit about yourself, Mike, and what do you like? What do you not like? What are you all about?
Thanks, Tony. I think this is great what you're doing, and I appreciate and I'm honored that you would ask me to do it. So, who am I? That's a good question. So, I don't think I had a life before 1974, which is when I came in the Army. But I'm from New York, New York City. I was born in Harlem Hospital. I was raised in Brooklyn, hustled and bustled. I was a bicycle messenger in New York City with my brother, dodging in and out of cars on a 10-speed. I guess before it was a big thing. And um, and then in 1974, um, I went in the army, and of course Vietnam was still going on then, and all of my drill sergeants were Vietnam veterans, and they all referred to us as either casualties or body bags. I mean, that's what
Yeah, I remember
they were
those days.
all, but they were in a effed up kind of way. They were trying to keep us alive, and so all of them were Vietnam veterans. Not the PFCs, everyone had just come from Vietnam, and you'd see these staff sergeants with decorations up over their shoulders. It
Oh
was
wow.
it was uh, it was a sight to behold. And so I felt like when I went through that basic training, it was even worth when I did go to Ranger School. My basic training was Ranger School, so so in the '70s. So um, graduated AIT, all of that at Fort Knox. Infantry School was actually Benning and Fort Knox at the time, and then I wound up going to Camp Drum,
Oh wow.
which is now Watertown, which is now Fort
Mhm.
Drum. But
Fort
I
Drum,
wound up
yeah.
going to Camp Drum. I got my first Article 15 for drinking. As a pup, I was 17. And but what's interesting about that is I got an Article 15, and the 7 other guys with me who were white got smacks on the hand. And so that started giving me a bad taste about what the Army was all about. And
Absolutely.
uh, and then I got out. I boxed. Uh, Not all Army, just post. But I was decent. But I wound up getting out. I just had a bad taste in terms of the Army. So I got out for 2 years. I drove a cab, a New York City cab, yellow cab, with my dad in New York City, and I grew tired of that. And then so I, I, when I got out, I joined the Guard. I joined the Guard for 2 years. 42nd Infantry Division, 69th Infantry on in 68th Street in Manhattan. And but I never went to drill. So I
Naughty.
was too busy hustling and the whole nine.
Yes.
So dun, da, 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 I came up on orders for active duty. So I got
Wonderful.
compelled into active duty. And going back in, I said I might as well go all the way. And so I wound up going to airborne school. And my first unit of assignment was 7th Special Forces Group, Green Berets, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And that's
Airborne.
what, and that's when I got introduced to um, Command Sergeant Major Billy Lee, who was the Grand Wizard of the KKK. I mean, I didn't know it at the time.
Sure.
And I won't go into the whole thing. I've told you that story before, Tony, but it was a wake up call, huge wake up call. So, um, Billy Lee, my sergeant major, my team sergeants and platoon sergeants, they were all in the KKK. All of them were well known. Billy Lee was a Vietnam hero. Like he was, um, just he was admired and respected. But he was the Grand Wizard, and everybody knew it on base, which was crazy. Um, so that was in '79. And so I wound up going from 7 Special Force Group to 5th Special Force Group, which was right next door. And then from 5th Group, I wound up going to Panama, 3rd to the 7th Special Forces Group, because I'm Puerto Rican and Mater. I'm half Puerto Rican. I forgot to tell you that. So I was a Spanish speaker, and so I wound up going to El Salvador, Honduras, Tegucigalpa, Tiger Island, um, uh, just about everywhere in Central and South America. So I was a door gunner um, in El Salvador on one mission. I did just about everything. They threw me at everything, and I did everything. And my battalion commander, who just died last year, who lived here in Fort Benning, um, he compelled me to go to not just Ranger School. He wanted to be in a Ranger battalion. So Ranger School is 61 days of hell, hardest school in the freaking Army. But Ranger Battalion is Ranger School every day. You got to earn your scroll
Yeah.
and your tam. Well, at that time it was a black beret. Um, but so I did some major deployments with them. In fact, I wound up going to um, close to 30 deployments: El Salvador, Honduras, Sarajevo, Costa Rica, Croatia, Panama twice, Turkey, Kuwait, Kurdistan, Ukraine, Iraq, um, and Russia. So Ukraine, meaning Kiev, I was a part of a mid-team training. Folks, they didn't have an enlisted force, and so we wound up training, setting up their enlisted force. They had cons, cons, people they paid,
Right.
conscriptors,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I did everything from ANOC instructor to commandant to I broke my wrist twice while I was in Ranger Battalion, and I had to change my MOS.
Yeah.
And when I changed to JAG, which was really weird because
And for
I
those of
had
that don't know that aren't military, what does JAG stand for, Sergeant Major?
legal.
Yes.
So I wound up becoming a legal NCO, then a special operations legal NCO, um, where I was part of the cell for targeting issues and assisting attorneys in HVTs, targeting HVTs, and the whole 9 yards. So I grew in that. I had to learn how to become a legal guy, but my infantry background and the legal background kind of mixed well. At least for me, it didn't mix well for the JAG Corps.
Yes, I imagine.
So um, I wound up ultimately I wound up becoming the JAG school for the Army, the legal center in school, first sergeant major, and then the command sergeant major for the NCO Academy, which we set up
Very cool.
um, in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so that's the whole Army thing. And I wound up eventually retiring in 2008. I did 34 years total. I wound up retiring in 2008 as an instructor at the Sergeants Majors Academy down in Fort Bliss, Texas. So that's my military career. And when I got out, I wound up working for the Wounded Warrior program. It just kind of felt right. You know, I visited there one day and I said, hey, this is a great place to work. I'm trying to help as many brothers and sisters as I could. And I wound up becoming a counselor. Got my master's, did some other work, and then I went to work for the VBA. Then I went to work for the Office of Patient Care, which was a really weird job because I know that they gave me that job because they didn't really have anybody like me. Like they didn't have an authentic Army guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So I knew I was the token. At least I wasn't the token because I was black. I was the
Yes.
token because I was the Army guy.
Still.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So um, went through their whole training thing with Tracy Gaudet at Duke University, as health coaching the whole 9 yards, and I was pretty stoked about that because I didn't know anything about whole health. I was a rock eater. I hardcore like yourself, Tony. I mean, I just
Yes,
felt like
yes,
eating rocks.
yes.
You want to eat
They're
tofu?
delicious.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. You eat your little tofu and pass me that freaking steak.
Yeah.
So, um, and then, but it just got me into the whole mindful meditation piece, and I wound up being pretty decent at the whole, at capturing what whole health is essentially all about. Um, and started to do some research on understanding why it is our military culture piece was not integrated into the VA. I met so many people in the VA that didn't know any, didn't know anything about the military. It just
Right.
kind of freaked me out. Um, so that has become my life's work as a side thing. It's just
Right.
trying to educate the folks that really want to do well with our veterans and help our caregivers and our families. I wanted to make sure that they were educated enough at least to have the conversation.
Well, I appreciate your journey, and I know what you do now. What really stuck with me when you told me the initial story about, meeting up with heads of the KKK and in your first duty assignment was your incredible journey from that kind of discrimination right up front, and that you pushed through that, and then now are such an advocate for everybody but yourself. Like, you advocate for LGBTQ, which I certainly appreciate. You advocate for women veterans. You advocate for everybody except you. And right now your house is on fire, so that's why we're having these kind of conversations, because Black lives do matter, and that's my primary thing, is like, let's talk about it. So thank you for sharing your incredible story. Let me ask you, Mike, what do you fear as an African American man in today's culture? What is it that you fear most?
I fear ignorance the most. People who are okay with one version, one one narrative, and then that's it.
Uh,
The page doesn't get turned, the channel doesn't get turned, the brain doesn't get turned. I get this narrative, continual narrative, and so what you just said, how you advocate for me, I advocate for you. I call it, you own my shit, I own your shit, and then it's all of our shit.
it's a human experience, right? Absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely. And
exactly.
I love that you said that. And I love working with you because I'm able to call and ask you things. So your fear is ignorance, and that's a big problem I see, with, the way social media is going, and how people are talking about, we need to take down, why are we taking down the statues? Why is the rebel flag bad? Why are all these things? And what is Juneteenth? And so, I would say 2 years ago, I didn't know that until that was brought up in our team, and we talked about it. And you read a story earlier that just really, I think, was, it needs to be heard, because that story is why why I think that the Black community still feels enslaved, because for a lot of reasons, in a lot of ways, and again, me being ignorant, and now my eyes are open, going, oh my God, it's the brands that throw back to slavery. It's the pictures that are at the different government facilities that are, portraying slaves. It is, all these statues that portray slavery. I mean, if you can't get past something if you don't put that chapter away, and we
Right,
should be
right,
well
right.
past that. So Juneteenth is just a huge day of celebration to me, and should absolutely be a federal holiday. But can you, if you would, read that story and kind of tie that into why
Sure.
Juneteenth is so important, sir?
So let's see. So this is a story of Jesse Washington. He was an African American 17-year-old farmhand who was lynched in the county seat of Waco, Texas on May 15th, 1916, in what became a well-known example of racially motivated lynching. Washington was convicted of raping and murdering Lucy Fryer, the wife of a white employer in rural Robinson, Texas. He was chained by his neck and dragged out of the county courthouse by observers. He was then paraded through the street, all while being stabbed and beaten before being held down and castrated. He was then lynched in front of Waco City Hall. Over 10,000 spectators, including city officials and police, gathered to watch the attack. There was a celebratory atmosphere among whites at the spectacle of the murder, and many children attended during their lunch hour. Members of the mob cut off his fingers and hung him over a bonfire after saturating him with coal oil. He was repeatedly lowered and raised over the fire for about 2 hours. After the fire was extinguished, his charred torso was dragged through the town and parts of his body were sold as souvenirs. A professional photographer took pictures as the event unfolded, providing rare imagery of a lynching in progress.
And all of that, and he was in fact innocent of
Right,
that crime.
right.
So that's one example, just one, and there's just so many that are overwhelming. And I thank you for sharing that, because I can see it doesn't make you comfortable to read that. So thank you for doing that hard thing. Can you tie that to Juneteenth and why that's such a big day?
So Juneteenth, and let's put things in context. Juneteenth, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. 1865 is when. Wow, my grandson is getting ready to come in the door, and I got to
That's
close my
okay. We
office
love
door.
him.
All right.
I'll stand by.
I love you, baby. I love you, but I'm working. Come say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hello,
Hi.
handsome. Thank you for being on with
Hi,
the
Tony.
Connected Empowerment.
Can you
Handsome
hear?
guy. Hello. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I remember Spider-Man in my car.
You see, remember
That's
Spider-Man in
awesome.
the car? Okay, go see J-Lo, and then we'll get you something so you can go in the pool. You want to go in the pool? You can go in the pool. Close that door for me, baby. Close that door.
Another
Love
thing
you.
that I love most about you, Mike, is your commitment to family. And I'm going to keep this video just the way it is, because I think that just shows who you, that's just another piece of who you are, that your family always comes first. And I just love that about you. So we're just going to keep that right as it is. And your beautiful grandson and Spider-Man there and their little guest appearance. So thank you. But please go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, 1865 is when the Emancipation Proclamation finally reached the slaves in the South. So a 2-year difference between the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and when slaves in the Deep South, Texas, were finally realized that they were free. But that term free is loaded. Think about it. Were they really free? We let you know, okay, this document was signed into law, but all of the institutions, all of the things that kept slavery going were still in place. And certainly the hatred was still there. So when they referred to institutionalized, that was the beginning of the institutionalized. Now, they certainly tried, America tried really hard. We have 3 senators right now, 3 black senators in Congress, 3 blacks. However, in Reconstruction, right after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, there were 270 mayors, congressmen, senators that were holding local office and were thriving and moving forward. Tulsa, Oklahoma is one of those areas, the Black Wall Street. So there were areas where Black people were trying to thrive. Unfortunately, because of this institutional stuff, and institutional meaning racism in criminal justice system, in the employment, in housing, in the political power, in education. You can't move forward if everywhere you go, even when you set up your own stuff, there's going to be a block. And so this wasn't about individual racism. Certainly that existed, but the institutions, mostly created by the Confederates, who morphed into the KKK, right? The KKK is an offshoot and a morphing from the Confederacy. So every symbol that is Confederate is really about the KKK. And here's the crazy part: Southern white folks don't even realize it, because revisionist history is the daughters of the Confederacy.
Mhm.
They actually took the textbooks of kids and revised them, took out slavery.
Yep.
So I, I, I don't blame people for not knowing that. Because the way that they were educated, you look in their history books, you know,
They
you got
didn't know.
5 pages talking about Native Americans, you got maybe 2 or 3 pages talking about 1 or 2 pages talking in my granddaughter's history book. There were 3 pages on slavery, five
Wow.
pages on I'm in Alabama, 5 pages on Martin Luther King, right?
Yeah.
And 3 pages on slavery. So why would you think slavery was such a big deal? Why,
Right.
you know,
Right.
if I'm a white kid in Alabama, come on, get over it, man. Slavery, man. It was 2 pages in my history book. You know
Right.
what?
Right.
I
Yeah.
get you. So when I approach people, I assume the ignorance. I assume it. And so I just need to have a conversation with you to figure out where your level is at. Now, for executives like you, Tony, and people who are really, you know, moving forward in terms of taking the bull by the horn and ensuring that people get the information that they need. It is my quest to make sure, and I told this story yesterday on the call, that my white brothers and sisters do the research, that
That's right.
they become comfortable with all of our history. So on Martin Luther King Day, I'm looking for a white cat. I'm looking for a white brother or sister to talk about not Martin Luther King, talk about Malcolm X, talk
Hmm.
about W.E.B. Du Bois, talk about a Toussaint L'Ouverture, the first, the most successful, the only successful slave revolution, where they revolted against the French and they actually took over Haiti. That's
Right.
how Haiti was created. So
Yep.
there are so many stories about all of our history and some really great American history heroes that happen to be Black. But I need white people to tell that story. We don't
That's
need
right. That's right.
stereotypical Black dudes, every Martin Luther King. Black dude, come on over here and tell the story. And you might suck. You know, you might be a Black dude that sucks at,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
can't shoot a spitball. But I'm going to get you to talk about Martin Luther King, right?
Right.
No,
Right.
I
Right.
want I want talent. And if that talent is white, and you are telling me about other American history, other heroes that happen to be Black, you have credibility, right? You look
Nice.
like me.
Yep.
I'm white, and you're talking about our history. It starts to mean more, right? So that's my quest. My quest is to flip that bad boy on a dime and get my white brothers and sisters to start owning our entire history and talking about it, doing the research. Hey, Martin Luther King, I'd like to be a guest speaker. You want to blow some people's minds? Go to a school and say, hey, you got Martin Luther King coming up? I want to be the guest speaker, and see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they might freak out, but they'll
They
love it.
might. You're right. Yeah, and that's, I think, and thank you for that. I know we have to wrap this up quickly here because we've got about a minute before we probably get cut off. But to everybody out there, that's the big lesson for today: is ignorance. Just because it always was doesn't mean it should have ever been. So look at, and through fresh eyes, our history, not Black history, not white history, not LGBTQ, not whatever. Our history is American. How do we tell each other's story so that we empower each other? And that's what connected empowerment is all about. If we stay connected, then we empower each other with one story and one version, because Black lives do matter, and it is time to make sure that that is heard. So Mike, thank you for your time. Thank you for being
Great
so
job, Tony.
honest. Thank you for just letting us know ignorance is bliss, right? But it's not. You have to know, and we have to do better. Now that we know better, we have to do better. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your service. Your incredible spirit lifts me up every day. So thank you for being you, and thank you for being honest. Not always easy conversations to have, but as always, you are the master teacher. And anytime you'd like me to speak on MLK Day, I'm there for you, brother.
Oh
So
man,
thank you very much.
love you, Tony. God
I
bless
love
you
you too. You take care, buddy.
all the
Bye.
way. Roger, out.